open and conclude, or do you wish to reserve?
I wish to reserve. Thank you.
Ms. LoRusso.
Thank you. I'm always amazed when we bring complex cases before hearing officers, and they seem to cut straight through to the issues. And I think sometimes it's because we have the ability to get too wrapped up in our cases, and the people who are the outside observers at the 30,000-foot view can see things more clearly and more simply than we do. And perhaps that's why this system works. Freelancing is not defined in the policy. It's talked about. It's apparently pretty important because it's in there 4 or 5 times, but it's not defined. And a firefighter with 20 years experience should know what it is. And when confronted about freelancing, he said, no, I was not. Nothing in the policy says that you can't regroup and work with another crew when it's necessary and appropriate, especially when it can save a life. Immediately dangerous to life and health. IDLH, you heard that a lot. When Danny Dwyer got off that truck, those firefighters didn't have to go anywhere. They could have sat there and let that house burn. But they knew there was one person who was in an IDLH environment, not Danny's crew, where he would have had to maintain control over them and sight and arm's length. It was Sally Scrine, citizen of the city of Atlanta, a lady who was elderly, lived behind burglar bars, and went to sleep knowing that if she ever needed help, she could call 911. You'll see in C8 those words. I did not believe Miss Scrine had an extra 60 to 90 seconds for me to wait for my drivers, so I entered with engine 22. Now, I told you at the beginning of this might be a case of children playing telephone and things being misunderstood. I just don't see it. I don't see how you write this man up for going in alone and how you have 3 or 4 references in this file that he went in alone when you know he didn't. When you know that the incident commander at the time, Captain Ware, who's on the scene, says, let's go. We got an entrapment. And how nobody apparently took 10 minutes to sit and ask David Ware, why does your hose look like that? Now, I have nothing personal against the chief. I'm sure he's a very nice man. I'm sure he's dedicated his life to fire service. He didn't even know if that was Captain Ware's hose or not. What you're seeing is it just wasn't a focus. Is everybody wanted to find something to fault. So nobody had to look at the fact that 2 firefighters almost died that day because the battalion chief, the incident commander, lost track of them because he couldn't see the front of the house and he didn't use the radio, didn't use the tools that were available to him. You've heard that engine 22 and truck 16 were on the same mission. This is not 2 sets of firefighters who came from either sides of the house and said, hey, let's figure out what to do. Forget the policies. Let's just wing it. Let's freelance. No, they're on the porch. They're at the door. They're both given the same assignment. And they recognized time was of the essence. And Captain Ware looked at a trained firefighter with specific experience in flashover. He looked at the situation. Danny looked at the situation. And they said, let's go. Come with me. And that's what they did. As you've heard from a couple of people, policies are guidelines. They absolutely do not tell you everything to do in every situation. If that was the truth, I could leave this room, go pick up the manual, read it, and be a firefighter riding a truck tomorrow. That'd be ridiculous. And the citizens of the city of Atlanta wouldn't stand for it because they deserve better than that. They deserve professional trained firefighters. And that's what they had. That's what Sally Scrine had on her porch that day. We've heard all this stuff about people being split and crews being split. But in the last 10 minutes of the hearing, we heard that engine 22 was split. Nobody seems concerned about that. This notion that Danny Dwyer left 2 firefighters unattended for makes it sound like they're kids at Six Flags that need a little wrist bracelet so we know who they belong to. They're doing their jobs. They got 20 years of experience. They're professional firefighters. They get off the truck, they put on their equipment, and they run to the front. And by the time they get there, they practice putting on their equipment as quickly as they can. By the time they get there, the opportunity's lost. And that opportunity was an opportunity for Ms. Scrine to live and be rescued. And even though she passed, an opportunity for her family to not have her burned up in a fire. These firefighters know what that's like. You asked a question. Freelancing not defined in the policy. And you also asked another question. Does anything in the policy say that you can't join forces? It was an interesting choice of words. That you can't combine forces, that you can't work together with another crew to save a life. Thank God there isn't such a thing in that policy. Either the policy or the enforcement is an affront to the city of Atlanta and the citizens who rely on those firefighters on those trucks to come save them. I don't think anybody in the city of Atlanta wants to live in an environment if there's a policy that says you can't combine forces with another set of professional firefighters, make a judgment call, and try to save a life. I told you what this case was about, and I showed you Sally Scrine's picture at the beginning of this. And I also told you the why he was being written up, because nobody wanted to admit that this situation got out of control and 2 firefighters almost died. The only thing that was under control, the only thing that was calculated, the only thing that incorporated the training and the experience and the policies and procedures and the hundreds of thousands of dollars of training that were standing on that front porch was Danny Dwyer's decision to put his life at risk for a woman he never met. You may know around this time, and it was alluded to, that the chief made a very brave decision to discipline him. I couldn't disagree more. You may know around that time this had a lot of publicity and there were stickers made up. Danny would go. I teach law enforcement all around the country. I've seen those patches around the United States. Danny would go. And I hope to God that even today, that if I'm inside of that house, or my family's inside of that house, and engine 22 with a charged 1 3/4 inch line with another firefighter is standing at that door, and I know the conditions are right for them to come in, I hope to God that there's a firefighter who's going to make that judgment call, and just like Danny, they'd go. This needs to be reversed. The suspension needs to be rescinded. He needs to be refunded the suspension money that they took from him. They trained him with hundreds of thousands of hours to make a judgment call. He was within policy, did not violate policy. And this suspension should be rescinded. I thank you for your time and your patience, and I thank you for listening to everything.
Thank you. Ms. Baytop.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Sir Chair. We have heard quite a bit about freelancing. And as much as the appellant and his representative would have us to believe that a seasoned officer with all the experience that Lieutenant Dwyer, or Mr. Dwyer had, is not aware of what freelancing is. As a matter of fact, as it was stated earlier, as soon as these employees enter into the training academy, They are educated, trained, educated some more, trained some more about freelancing and what it means in regards to maintaining crew integrity. And so I believe that the city has indeed successfully demonstrated that Mr. Dwyer did in fact violate the policy. I don't want it to be viewed as anything other than the actions of Lieutenant Dwyer as well as the policy. Again, the policy that he was charged with was appropriate action required. And it is no debate at all that Lieutenant Dwyer entered the structure without his crew members. And so any seasoned officer knows better than to freelance and leave their crew, especially an officer in charge. However, Mr. Dwyer wants this board to believe that he did absolutely nothing wrong. And absolutely no one should see the actions that he took as anything less than heroic. Mr. Dwyer believes that this board should simply chalk his behavior up as approved behavior and move on. Unfortunately, what Mr. Dwyer fails to realize is that his underlying actions as an officer on that day were not only in conflict with the policy, but it says to his crew members and the others on the scene, and as we heard from Captain Ware, basically forget about the rules. Leave your crew members and do your own thing at any and all cost. And this is not the integrity of the city, and it is not the stance of the department. And based upon the totality of the evidence that has been provided to you today, Sir Chair, the city asks that beside all of the finger pointing, and again, all of the other things that would try to detract from the case itself, the facts itself, the violation itself, we ask that you would, in fact, deny the appellant's appeal. And so we thank you. The city thanks you for your time and your consideration, sir. Thank you.
Ms. Baytop, Mr. LoRusso, I've been doing this for a little over a year, and I'm going to compliment the two of you. This is perhaps one of the better prepared and presented hearings that I've had the honor to preside over. I think the two of you have made very cogent, very persuasive arguments on both sides. I will deliberate with myself.
Yes.
And I will get an order out within the requisite time, no later than 30 days. Again, thank you both so much. I mean, it was a pleasure sitting here listening to two advocates advocate on behalf of their respective parties.
Thank you, sir. And I respect Mr. LoRusso to the utmost. I do.
I appreciate that. I appreciate working with Ms. Baytop. And I also want to thank Ms. Harmon. We would all be running around in circles on Zoom if she didn't help us out. So thank you very much.
Truth. Yes. Thank you.
But thank you all so much. Enjoy this Cinco de Mayo.
Yes. You as well, sir. Thank you.
All right. You all be well.
You as well. Thank you.